independent journalist. He's also the coordinator of We Are Change Orlando and March Against Monsanto Orlando. So he's come to us all the way from Orlando just to be here and share with you guys about his perspective on the flat earth theory. So, but as they would say it, the reality. So on Instagram, I just want to let you guys know that you can follow his journey. It is JHarveyWRC. And on that note, please join me in welcoming Justin Harvey.
All right, thank you all so much for coming out and sticking with us like she said. I know it's getting a little late, and I hope everybody can see the TV a little bit.
Do you need help with the slides, Justin?
No, it's okay. I got a little clicker. I'm good. But yeah, so my name is Justin. I'm from Orlando. I've been kind of helping Ryan with these events a little bit here and there. I'm really supportive of like this whole movement of these conscious networking events. And just a short backstory on me is I do independent journalism and activism in Orlando. I host a March Against Monsanto. So about 5 years ago, I sort of fell into the rabbit hole and learned about GMOs and fluoride and veganism and Federal Reserve, 9/11, all that good stuff. And I was on a steady pace and attending events and trying to host stuff, and it really wasn't until about 5 years in is when the flat Earth thing kind of came across my feed, and people started bringing it up to me, and like most people, I was like, you guys have got to be kidding me, like this is absolutely ridiculous. What, are we stuck in the Stone Age? Like, what, did you fail second grade science class? Like, I mean, I had all the knee-jerk responses that they were all want to have at first. So I just want to thank you guys for being open-minded enough to hear me out at least on this. And that's why my first slide says it's the mark of an intelligent mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. And so I just appreciate you guys taking the time to at least hear me out on this, because just like everyone else, I thought this was absolutely crazy. And it wasn't until I really looked at the evidence with an objective mind, and I realized that there was something to this. So first, I just want to say, don't believe anything I say up here tonight. Don't take it to the bank, because that's how we got in this mess with a lot of the issues. It's just believing what we're told, just blindly accepting it without any evidence to back it up. And the other thing is too, I know a lot of people think that flat earther, so to say, would be like anti-science. And I'm not anti-science at all. We're actually very pro-science. And I'll go into that a little bit here in a few minutes. And I'm just going to kind of go over the basics. Just by show of hands, how many people are familiar with the flat earth theory and the idea? Okay, so most people here are. How many people are pretty sure that we live on a globe? Okay, not too many people. Okay, we may have some flat earthers in here. And how many people are like kind of interested to hear more points about this and are kind of on the fence about the whole thing? Okay, so at least I know where we're at here with this. So if you guys, I kind of want to make this a little more interactive and not just come up here and ramble, because there's so much information I could go on for hours about it, going into Antarctica and space and NASA and all this different stuff. So I'm going to try to just run through some basics real quick, and if you guys have questions during it, just feel free to raise your hand, and I'll try to answer them as best I can. So how did I get into this? Well, I became a flat earther because I tried to debunk the flat earth. And when I looked into the evidence, like I said for myself, there wasn't any evidence to support the claim that we live on a spinning ball. And I know that can sound a little like, wait, what do you mean there's no evidence? There's tons of evidence. There's science, there's photographs, there's videos. Well, I'd like to get into that. And this was sort of my face when I first looked into it. I was kind of like, holy cow, you guys have got to be kidding me. I stumbled across some YouTube videos from b.o.b. Shout out to him and some other people out there that are doing some great research, as he was someone who actually wrote a book about the flat earth for the first time in over 50 years. And sort of brought it back into the spotlight after a long time. And sort of my motto for tonight is trust your senses. We've sort of let science replace our senses, and we're told things about the stars and the planets, gravity, and all these things, but we've thrown our own senses out the window. And when they tell us that we're spinning at thousands of miles per hour, hurling through space, nobody's ever felt it, nobody's ever measured it. They tell us that the Earth is a big ball, nobody's ever seen it, nobody's ever measured it. We no evidence to support these claims that we live on a ball and that it's moving, as ludicrous as that may sound. So I'm going to just kind of touch on that when I get to certain points. Just think about what you feel inside and what you see. When you look up at the night sky or look out over a calm lake, does it feel like we're spinning at all these different speeds? Does it look like the sun is 90 million miles away, as they say it is? You see the sun rays beaming out of these clouds at times. Ask yourself, does that look 90 million miles? Can you even fathom 90 million miles? Because I sure can't. I can't even think what a million miles would be. But to me, it looks like it's pretty close to those clouds, maybe just, peering through them. So you got to ask yourself, what we believe, is it true because it's true, or is it just because we haven't looked any further? And I started to realize that when I started down this journey. I thought, well, I haven't. It's well accepted that we live on a ball, but have I really looked into it? Have I looked into the stuff that NASA and that Copernicus and Galileo and Aristotle and the Greeks that say that the Earth is a ball? And I had to really look at the stuff for myself. So here's a picture of our supposed home here, Earth. Now, we've got satellites orbiting the Earth for almost 50 years now. We've been to the moon 6 times, and we've got all this technology and all these cameras in the sky. How many pictures do you guys think that we should have of the planet by now?
Thousands. Billions.
Thousands, right? Hundreds, at least thousands. I mean, there probably should be taking shots all the time. We should probably have 10, 20, 30 satellites just dedicated to focusing in on us. Well, I came to find out that there's not a single picture of the Earth. Not one. They're all computer-generated images, just like this famous blue marble that you've all probably had on the background of your iPhone before. And these aren't my words. This is NASA's words. If you look up all their official photos of the Earth, they're computer-generated. They're artist renditions. They've been designed in Photoshop. And that was the most mind-blowing thing to me. It's 2018. With all this technology and all these cameras, we don't even have a picture of our own home. The Hubble's apparently taking pictures of things millions and trillions of light years away, not of our own home. That was the most shocking thing that I learned about it. And it's not my words, like I said, it's NASA. Data visualizer Robert Simon, Mr. Blue Marble, says it is photoshopped, but it has to be. And they have this long explanation about there's ribbons of imagery, they have to splice them together. And it's like, what are you talking about? We should have, like we said, thousands of pictures of the Earth, but there aren't any. Well, that's the number one reason we think that that's where we live. Well, that's not true. If you compare them, you can take these official NASA photos, they're different colors, the countries are different sizes. Here in America, this one in America grew, it's about 2 to 3 times bigger. You might not be able to see it from here, but you can take these, go home and go to NASA's website, download the picture from 2007 and 2012, and the countries are different sizes, oceans are different colors. Well, that's because they're all fake, and they admit that. Well, what about the shots from the moon? Well, if you take the NASA photos from the moon, put them in your Photoshop at home, adjust the settings, and the contrast, and the brightness, there's a little box around the Earth because it was a picture inserted into the photo. So why are they faking all the pictures and creating all the pictures of the Earth if it's really there, if they're really up there? So I just had to ask myself that. So I can only laugh here when NASA says they discovered 1,000 new planets that's 8 galaxies or light years away, but they don't even have a picture of the Earth. It's somewhat comical to me. And I could go on with NASA for hours. I'm just going to kind of touch on it here, but the evidence of them faking space travel and the evidence of them faking the pictures of our planet is very long. There's a documentary I encourage everyone to check out. It's called A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon, and it shows the NASA astronauts faking the shots of the Earth. And this is just a video from inside the space station. As you can see, the guy is sort of disappearing here. It's not supposed to have audio. But if you download these videos and analyze them, you'll see there's camera tricks and green screen malfunctions, and they're using wires and harnesses to hold up the astronauts. They're faking the footage. And the evidence is all there for you to go look at. So I encourage you, if you want to learn more about NASA and how they fake their videos, whether inside the space station or outside the space station, look up ISS hoax, look up bubbles in space, look up NASA fail on YouTube, and you'll see it for yourself. And if you don't want to, you can go to their website, download their videos, and analyze them, and you will see the glitches, the malfunctions, because it's very hard to fake and continue to fake it. So, long story short about NASA, the only thing they send to space is our imagination. And I encourage you to research it for yourself, because you'll see that they're faking the funk, basically.
So about who founded it?
Huh?
Talk to them about who founded NASA.
Oh yeah, the whole origins of NASA, like I said, I could go on with them for hours, but the origins of NASA is from Project Paperclip, when they brought over the Nazis from World War II and splintered them off to the CIA and to NASA, and that's who basically started the space program. So there's a lot of deceit going on with how it started and what it's about. But what's the number 2 reason why we think we live on Earth? Well, Aristotle, these guys back in the old days, they said that, well, the boats go out to sea and eventually they start to disappear. Well, that must mean because it's going over the curvature of the Earth. And this is like the main reason. I mean, Bill Nye, Neil deGrasse, they all still talk about this. Well, obviously, we see the boats go out in the distance. Well, what if I told you that boat is not really going over the curvature? It's just going out of your line of sight. It's converging at the vanishing point until it's no longer in your view. And we know this because we can take a Nikon P900 camera and let the boat go 100% out of your view. Let it go over the curvature. Pull out your zoom lens, and the boat comes right back into view. Time and time again. Proving that whether they were lying or wrong, it doesn't really matter. But Aristotle and these guys, if they were fortunate enough to have the technology we have today, we'd be able to see that boat. The boat does not go over a curve. It's just simply going out of your line of sight. And if you're an artist or anything, you know how this works. Everything disappears eventually at the vanishing point. So that's what's happening with the boats. And so if we really think about, the pictures are not real. The boat's not really going over the curve. These are easily disprovable now. So what's the real reasons why we think we live on a globe? Well, mainly it's just because everybody else thinks it. Our parents thought it, our teachers taught it, and a scientist said so. That's really it. So I challenge everyone to think about what we've been taught, and just because it's been accepted for so long, just because everyone knows it to be a fact, still question it. See if they have evidence to support the claim. And then when you go to look at it, you see, well, the pictures aren't real, so we need to do some more research here. And this is just very dangerous. You know, scientists have said that we will believe anything if they say scientists have discovered it. So when you hear them talk about NASA scientists say, oh, we discovered that there's 2 new moons on the other side of Pluto, and there's another galaxy 8, trillion light years away. How can you verify that for yourself? How did they even know that that's true? How did they measure that? So just ponder that when you hear about these new discoveries. And why don't people question the globe? The main reason is because we accept the reality of the world in which we are presented. We're very small children when we walk into that classroom and we see that sphere. And we're not in a position to question. We're not in a position to challenge this yet. We just accept it and we move on. And it's very well ingrained in us. And that's why that people are so resistant to this, I believe, is because it's just so well accepted. If I try to tell you that this water is not wet, you guys are going to call me crazy because this water's wet. And it's just about the same thing when it is with the globe. You tell people that the earth may be flat, or maybe, we don't live on a globe, it just seems like a ludicrous idea. And some of the basics of it real quick. I mean, how many people are familiar with what the model looks like? Pretty much everybody. Is anybody not familiar with it? Okay, not really. But just really quickly, this is how it looks. There's the North Pole. Magnetic North is in the center. It's just sort of like a dinner plate. And the 360-degree ice wall, known as Antarctica, is the perimeter, what keeps us in, or what holds the water in. And, the first question everybody has, why don't we fall off the edge? Why don't we fall off the edge? Well, you ever fallen out of a lake? Why not? Because there is a barrier. There's a perimeter. It contains the water. And in our case, this barrier is the ice wall. And this is what keeps the water in. So you've got to ask yourself, why do people get so hung up on the edge? We even said there was an edge. I didn't come up here and say there was an edge to the flat earth. Maybe this goes on forever. And it's an endless plan. Well, the reason that we always are asking about the edge is because when we were children, we've always been shown these ridiculous pictures of these waterfalls, these boats going over the edge. Here's a children's book, an actual one. See the boat coming over the edge, and they teach us that if anybody thinks this, you're an absolute fool. And they show us these goofy pictures. So whenever somebody comes up and says, well, what about the edge? just think, well, you said there was an edge. We're indoctrinated to believe that there is some edge that we'd spill over, so it must not be flat. But it's very simple to look into the fact that there is a ice wall perimeter known as Antarctica. There's a treaty. No independent exploration is allowed to go there, so nobody can really go check on that for themselves. If you go, you'll be turned away at gunpoint, fined a lot of money, threatened with jail time. It'd sort of be like trying to sneak onto a military base. The only people that go there are on government-approved research projects and independent tourist trips, which they'll probably take you to a little coastal area and then send you back. There's no real exploration going on. So if you want to learn more about Antarctica and the edge of the world, look into the Antarctic Treaty, and also Admiral Byrd, who was a general, or Admiral Richard E. Byrd, did explorations to Antarctica back in the 1950s, and he went on this national television show and said that there was a land as big as America on the other side of the South Pole that no man has ever seen before. Now, that doesn't really make a lot of sense, because apparently we've explored every continent, we know where everything is. But if there's land beyond the South Pole, then maybe he's talking about beyond this ice wall. We don't know, but it's a very interesting statement, and I encourage you to look more into him and his exploration. Once again, just another silly picture we're shown that that's what it must be like if it's flat, but that's just simply not the case. This is a Gleason's map from the 1800s. There's tons of maps. If you look throughout history, ancient civilizations and cultures all depicted a flat, stationary Earth with some sort of like dome to the top of it. Now, I don't subscribe, 100% to the dome idea. I can't prove it. I've never been there. And like with a lot of this stuff I'm going to talk about, I like to stick with things that we can observe, that we can see, and have practical experiments with. Part of the scientific method is that we need to be able to observe it, test it, measure it, repeat it, and then it's science. If we're just going to talk about something and we can't actually make it happen in front of us, we can't replicate water sticking to the outside of a ball while spinning, then it's just theory, and it's not science. So that's why I talk about I'm pro-science. Just quickly too, with the sun and the moon are rotating above us, so are the stars. Everything's rotating above us just as we observe. Trust your senses. Does it feel like we're spinning at ridiculous motions, faster than a speeding bullet through space? Or does it feel like we're still and that things are moving above us? So just for a little illustration, the sun is rotating over us like this, working more like a spotlight. Much smaller and closer than we're taught, not 90 million miles away. It's up there like a spotlight, only illuminating the area that it's directly over top of. Just another illustration. I don't think this is what it looks like. I'm not saying that this is official, but this is just like an idea. Sort of like a snow globe. Think of like the Truman Show, maybe. The sun, the moon, the stars, everything is just rotating above us, just as we see it. Do you think it's interesting that the sun is 90 million miles away? The moon is only 200,000 miles away, but they look exactly the same size up in the sky. One's supposedly 400 times larger than the other, but they look pretty much the same size. Well, maybe that's because they are. Yin and yang, equal opposites. Daylight and a nightlight. Also, the moon is not reflecting the sun's light. You can do this experiment at your home. I've done it myself. Measure the moon light and measure the moon shade with thermometers. And the moon light is cold. Does that sound like it's a reflection of the warm sun? No, the moon is giving off its own light. They're equal opposites. Possibly where this symbol came from as well. So these two are very significant, and they're local in our sky, and they're our day and our night light. One is not a random rock, and the other one is not a just ball of fire 90 million miles away that we can't also confirm. So before you attempt to insult flat earthers, which everyone loves to do, and I get lots of wonderful emails and messages of people who are upset about this, is that math and science disprove curvature in motion. And I'll get into that here in a second. And the first one is because no matter where you go, whether you're at sea level or whether you're in a high altitude balloon, there is absolutely no curvature. Nobody's ever seen it, measured it, detected it in the history of anything. And you can do this at the Chicago skyline, and there's actual measurements to this. I'm not going to get too into the math because it'll take a while, and I'd like to get to some of you guys' questions. But there is math to this, and if you apply this math to the Chicago skyline or any other example, you will never, ever find curvature. This skyline should not be visible because of the curve of the Earth. At 60 miles out, if you do the math, there should be over 2,000 feet of curvature. Even this tallest building on this skyline should be behind the curve, but that's just simply not the case. I've actually met the guy who went and confirmed this. Look up his work online too, Rob Skiba. And they've gone out and found that there is no curvature. Now you can apply this to a lighthouse, to a pier, to any tall structure over a body of water, and you will always get the same result. The buildings aren't tilted, they're not hidden, it's not a mirage. Some people will say that this is a mirage. A mirage is inverted, where you see one on top of the other. Clear as day, there's time-lapse videos of it, and it's just as simple as that. If it's not been observed and we can't replicate it in a practical experiment, then we shouldn't accept it as fact. Like I said, you can do this with the Statue of Liberty, in any tall structure. These things are visible from 40, 60, 70, 80, 90 miles out. The curvature is 8 inches per mile squared. That means for the first mile, there should be 8 inches of drop. And each mile after that, you square the distance. Well, I know we're always taught that the Earth is just so big, right? It's just so vast, you'd never be able to see it. Do you have any idea how small we are? Isn't that what we're always taught? Well, there is math to it, and there is a curvature because it is one big curve. It's a ball, supposedly. Well, you apply that math and do your own objective research, you'll see there's no evidence to support that claim. The other thing, too, with the horizon, no matter where you're at, sea level, go up in an airplane, go to the top of a mountain, the horizon's always going to rise to your eye level, to the observer. And that's only possible on a plane. If we were on a ball, the higher you went, the horizon would remain where it's at, and you would be rising. But no matter how high we go, that horizon's always perfectly flat and eye level. Now, we've got high-altitude balloons that amateurs have sent up over 20 miles high, 4 times higher than you are in an airplane. Some people say, well, you can't see it in an airplane, you got to go higher. Well, we've been much higher, 120, 240,000 feet. It's 20, 30 miles up. There's no curvature. And I know what people are thinking, well, I've been in an airplane and I've seen it. Anybody sitting there maybe thinking, oh, I've seen it from an airplane? You can be honest. Because I did. When I first heard this, I said, well, hell, I've been in an airplane and I've seen it. It's got to be, there's some curvature up there. Well, I was anxious to get on an airplane again because when you go back up there, nah, no curve. It doesn't exist up there. Well, some people say, you're not high enough, go higher. Well, here's 60,000 feet, perfectly flat eye level from an amateur balloon footage. Let's go higher, 120,000 feet. Same exact thing, every single time. Not only is it no curve, but it's no movement. We're told that the Earth is spinning at 1,000 miles per hour at the equator, while orbiting the sun at 60,000 miles. So we're going like this, and like this at 60,000. While all of us, all the planets and the sun is all hurling at 500,000 miles per hour. That's 500,000 miles per hour. We're all rifling through space faster than a speeding bullet. No one's ever felt it. No one's ever measured it. No one's ever detected it. But we believe it is fact. So I encourage you all to go out and check for yourself. See if you find any curvature. Because we've been looking for it. There's a hashtag famously now for where is the curvature. So no matter how high you go, I encourage you to go try to find it. You say, well, there was a Red Bull jump. Saw it there. Look at that. Curved Earth, right? Case closed. I guess it is a globe, right? Anybody see what's wrong with this picture?
Yeah, fisheye lens.
Fisheye. Not only that, but this is the Earth. Where is the water?
It's all New Mexico, bro.
This is all land. The Earth is 70+% water. You're just looking over a tiny little portion of New Mexico. This is probably like a half of a county. And you think the curve is there? Well, not only is that not make any sense, but when you look at other videos from inside inside the capsule, they show it and it's perfectly flat and eye level. The camera outside is a fisheye lens. And how do you know this? Yeah, the world holds its breath as Felix prepares for his jump over planet New Mexico. It's kind of a joke about that. But the first clue is finish the curve. Take that image and put the Earth over it. Well, that doesn't make any sense because that makes him about the size of California and his capsule about the size of Texas or something. So it's clearly not a legit curve, and there's many clues to find this out. And the second one is watch when that balloon takes off. Well, when that capsule takes off, is this what you see at the ground level? We all know that's not a real curve of the Earth. So you know then that they're using a fisheye lens. If you're not familiar with that, that's a wide-angle lens that is giving it this effect. And this is the only time we've ever seen curvature. NASA uses this a lot, and so does Vice. Vice sent a joint up to space. You know, we got real trendy and cool. We're going to send a joint to space. Look, there's the curved Earth.
Didn't Tesla just send a car to space?
Yeah, the car in space, supposedly. But once again, before they send it up, here's the Vice video. See that curve there? That's the ground. We all know that's not a real curve, so that's how you know that it is a fisheye lens. Also, if you put a GoPro lens corrector on, you'll see that that curve is really perfectly flat. And this will warp when the camera's shaking. You'll see it go from curved to flat to inverted, and we all know the Earth doesn't curve this way. So clearly, evidence of fisheye. Just keep an eye out for it. When you see that NASA rocket go up, see if the Earth's curved to the ground level, and you'll know that it's not real. So we compare and we say, well, NASA's done it. Well, here's NASA at 19 miles with a curve. Well, how come our regular guys are sending stuff up and no curve, even higher than them? So are there two Earths? The curved one and a flat one? Am I missing something here?
Clearly.
So yeah, something's going on. So that they're, like I said, with the videos in the ISS and stuff, they're faking the funk. And if you watch their videos closely enough, and I personally think that they don't ever expected us to have, you know, YouTube and Photoshop and all these things to slow down their videos and zoom in and analyze it on our own computers at home. Because now that we have the ability to do that, we have the ability to expose them and show where they're screwing up and where they're lying to us. And the second biggest reason is water. And this is my favorite one personally. But if you look out over this pool, it's a good example. This water is, imagine the pool is off and it wasn't, running. Water lies completely flat. Natural physics of water. It does not bend or curve in its natural state. We know that it flows downhill, and we know that it lays flat. We can replicate this in any practical experiment. We can observe it, we can measure it, we can repeat it. So we know that it is fact. Well, have you ever tried to make water stick to the outside of a ball? Well, that's not going to work out too well. We all know what happens with that. So that can't be replicated in an experiment. So it's not science, it's not fact. A glass of water, a lake, a swimming pool, the ocean, it's always level. Except water in the classroom. Water in the classroom apparently magically sticks to that ball. Now I know you're thinking of gravity, and we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, like I said, the natural physics of water do not lie, and it takes the shape of its container. Every time it will take the shape of its container. It cannot cling to the exterior of a shape and spin. And hence, that's why it's called sea level and not sea curve. Water is flat and level, and that's one of the biggest proofs, and that's why we use it level with water in it as well. The other big thing about the Earth is what they tell us, the official story, is that we are spinning. Like I said, we're spinning in all these ridiculous motions, but the constellations have never, ever changed. For thousands and thousands of years, the ancients were able to predict what's going on up here. The pyramids are lined up with some of the constellations. They've never moved. The North Star ain't going anywhere. But we're supposedly spinning in 4 different directions at thousands, hundreds of thousands, even millions of miles per hour. But they've never moved. No one's felt it, and no one's ever detected it. So why do we believe it? Just because we were taught it? Look out over a calm lake. You guys are all familiar with a picture like this. If you're looking out over a calm day in the forest, you're looking at that lake with that glass, it looks like glass with that perfect reflection of the forest. And ask yourself, does that look like we are hurling through space faster than the speed of light? It sure doesn't look like that to me. Just like also too, when you look out not only over like a calm lake, but when you look up at the night sky and all the stars, like if you look up at some of the stars right now, there's a pretty bright one. I don't know if it's a planet or a star, but it doesn't appear that we're like hurling in all these different motions. And the stars are just rotating around us, above us, I mean. And it proves this with star trail time-lapse photos. Everybody's seen these. You can Google star trail time-lapse. They're moving in perfect circles, just like the sun and the moon are, just as we observe. Trust your senses. It's just another illustration of it. So how do you reconcile the Earth spinning and then spinning around the sun, all of it doing this vortex, hurling through space, with pictures like this? Does this look like 4 different motions? Or does it look like one circle. And one of the biggest things is like, why would they lie? That's what most people ask. Like, why would they do this? Well, there's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of possibilities. You know, we can prove that water's flat. We can prove that the Earth is motionless and flat, but we can't prove why they're doing it, or if there's a dome, or what's beyond the ice wall. So a lot of this stuff, you know, some of it is speculation, and I just want to mention that, but people always ask this question, so I just do want to touch on it. But what if they're hiding free energy? What if they're hiding the knowledge? What if beyond that ice wall is more land, like Admiral Byrd said, and it's got unlimited resources? Then the idea of scarcity, the idea of overpopulation, all these things they use to control us, it's all bogus. There's no telling what they could be hiding. And mainly the fact that we could be the center of the universe and we are special. They've taken one idea that we're on this rock hurling through endless space. We're just a happenstance, a cosmic accident. Just randomly exploded out of the Big Bang. We're just flying through space with a septillion planets everywhere, and we're not very significant. Even though some of us still may have overcome that, we still do feel significant. But it puts us more in a random accident idea than if we are the centerpiece. We're not moving. We're not flying around, and we're not just an accident. It's like a friend that's a plant-based comedian. I wish he was here tonight. But he said it best. It's not so much about the shape of the Earth as it is that they could be hiding the fact that we were intelligently designed and our home is intelligently designed. And if we don't know where we are, like Ryan said, how can we really know who we are or why we're here? It's almost like we're just blind, dumb sheep walking through aimlessly, like, well, whatever, you know, like an asteroid could hit us tomorrow, it could all be over. But that's not the case. We are special. And it raises questions. You know, has anybody ever tried to explore the beyond the ice wall? Nobody? Well, why not? Well, but you didn't know about it. See what they've done? They've built a prison without walls. If you think you live on a globe, and the only way to leave is space as an astronaut, chances are slim you're going to be able to do that. But what if it was like, you know, what if you were, I'm sure we've all seen the Truman Show, what if we were all like Truman, and we're all being lied to? And then you find out one day, hold on, there's a way out of here? There's more somewhere else that we haven't seen yet? I'm going to go find it. You're going to go trek to the ice wall. Maybe you're going to explore more. Well, they've taken that whole idea out of our head. No one's trying to leave because you don't think you can leave. It's a prison without walls. So your questions about what's under the earth, what's beyond the ice, all these questions, they're not even thought of. And that's part of the reason why they could be lying and why they could be keeping this from us. Does anybody have any questions so far? Like, yeah.
Are the other planets that we know of and that we see, are you under the impression that you believe that they're also not globes?
So the planets were referred to by the ancients as wandering stars. They didn't become planets until much later, until just recently, really. Probably, I don't know the exact time, maybe within the last 100 or so years. But if you take a Nikon P900 camera, that's a very powerful zoom in on the planets and the stars, you're going to see the same thing every time. Look it up on YouTube if you don't have the camera. But a lot of people are doing this, and they're like little blinking lights. If you look up at some of the stars, sometimes you can see them with the naked eye, even if they're twinkling. Mm-hmm. Well, if you take a camera and look at Mars, it's just this like blinking light. It's like a little disc. It's continuously changing from red to orange, back and forth, and it's not a spherical rock that we can land on. So they are wandering stars because they are just like the stars. They just move in a fixed pattern. And don't get me wrong, I still think all this stuff is incredible and significant. I'm not trying to knock, astrology or any of that stuff. I just don't think that it's quite what they've told us it is. And I can jump to some pictures real quick of the planets, actually. I'm glad you brought that up.
I have another question.
Yeah, no problem. Let me just get to the planet thing real quick. It's a little far in here. So the main thing is it's based on the assumption that we are a planet. And I personally don't believe that we are. I think that the Earth is the ground beneath our feet. And we don't have evidence of curvature. We don't have evidence of motion. So there's no evidence that we are a planet because all the pictures are fake, admittedly. So it'd be like trying to compare the pool table to the pool balls. There's no need for us to compare the ground beneath our feet to the lights in the sky, to put it short. And here's an image of Mars, what NASA shows us. And go ahead and look up P900 pictures. Look at this. Blinking lights. It'd be better if I had a video of it, but this is what it changes colors to within like a matter of seconds. They're lights. Mars, here's Neptune. It's a disc. It changes colors.
Wait, that's with what? A telescope? What is that?
Yeah, this is with Nikon P900.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, if you have a powerful enough telescope, but be careful, I will tell you. Now this is going to sound a little wild. This isn't some like NASA conspiracy that's in your telescope, but nicer telescopes do have preloaded images. So, and it knows where the celestial bodies are. So when you get over one, it is basically saying, well, it knows that's Jupiter, you're looking at Jupiter, well, it's going to give you a little more enhanced picture of Jupiter. And it's going to show you what it looks like in our science books, and not what it really looks like. Yes, Jupiter still has a ring. Yes, Mars is still there, and it's somewhat red, but it's a light. It is not a terra firma rock that you can land on. This is CGI, science book, cartoon stuff. This is what it really looks like. Just compare them. Compare what they show us and compare what you can see with your own eyes. Or until then, look it up on YouTube and other videos.
Probably you can study recent mythology and realize the names of all the planets.
Yeah, you're always getting on a deep level. You're always way ahead of me.
Like they use that a lot to confuse people. They put a lot of stuff. Like every crater on the moon is actually named after like scientists on Earth. Every planet is actually named after some type of mythological monster from different religions that they use to. They take different aspects of it to create most of the religions that we're familiar with. So it's actually like everything he's saying is very on point, but they take it to a level even further than that, where they're literally like brainwashing you from within almost.
Yeah, and to his point too, like I mean, all the shuttle missions and the names of the shuttles, like the Endeavour, Challenger. If you really look into the origin of those names and everything, they're up to some stuff. Like I said,
they form a whole sentence.
Yeah, they do. They form a sentence, and I don't know if it's some satanic ritualistic stuff they've got us programmed on, but and a lot of that is speculating still. It's very interesting, but like I can't prove any of that stuff. We can prove that water's flat and that there's no curvature and that there's no motion. And this is what stars look like under a high-powered camera. They're blinking lights. Do these look like distant suns? They tell us that the sun is a star. Does that look like suns to you? No, it's not. This is what the stars really look like. To me, it looks like water. It looks like a light on water. If you were to video like over top of this with the sun shining on the pool, you know how the kind of makes this look.
Reflection,
sort of.
yeah.
So make what you will of what the stars are, but no, I don't. To your question, I don't think that they're physical bodies.
Okay, I'm trying to understand how. So we're flat.
Yes.
The sun does appear. You go to the beach and you watch the sunrise. It does appear to rise.
Right.
So what the video that you showed is that they're just orbiting above us.
Correct.
So how
does the sunset
rise
work?
then?
Right.
You know
So
what I'm saying?
I understand it. I got you. So the sunset and the sunrise. It looks like it's going over the curve, right? Well, when you're out at a well, let's use this example. In this hallway, you see how this light is going downward? It's ramping down. We all know that light is not getting lower in the hallway. The same deal with some light poles. It's just perspective. It appears that it's setting, getting lower, but it's just getting further away from your view. It's how perspective works and how our eyes work. So it appears that the sun is going down, but I'm saying it's just getting further away until it's eventually converging at the vanishing point and no longer visible. It's still at generally the same height. Same with these light poles. We all know these light poles aren't built shorter than the others. That's how the sun is working. It's all about perspective. Same thing here. Those lights aren't setting.
But if you zoom into the lights, you'll see the lights. But if you zoom into the sun, you won't, right? If the sun goes down below the...
So yeah, good question.
You zoom into it with whatever camera, you won't see it. So where is it?
So you could, just like I was explaining with the boats, we think the boat's gone over the curve, right?
Right.
So the boat's over the curve. All right. When I take out my camera, zoom in, damn, there's the boat. It didn't go over the curve. It's not proving the Earth's flat. It's just proving that they were wrong. It's saying that we live on a globe because the boat is gone. Same thing with the sun. If you watch this video, the bottom portion of the sun, right, is going over the curve. We've lost the bottom portion of it. Watch when they zoom in with this video. this camera is not magic. It's not going to pull the sun back over the curve. But it's going to show that when you zoom in, from your perspective, it appears to be gone.
Oh, it looks like it's still there.
But look at all this space in between now.
Yeah, but in 10 minutes, that's going to be below. And no matter how much you zoom in, the sun's gone.
Eventually it will be, even with a camera, it will be
below
gone.
the line, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's going to be beyond the vanishing point. Not to say it's gone over a curve, it's just out of your view. We can only see for a limited view, and so can cameras only get us so much further. But that's essentially how the sun is working. It's not setting, but it's receding. Think of it as like a spotlight just going around. And you've got to ask yourself, like I said, with these crepuscular rays, these angled rays, does that sun right in those clouds, does that look like it's 90 million miles away to you? It doesn't to me. The moon and sun have both been photographed in what appear to be within the clouds at times. The clouds are not that far off, a few thousand miles up, I believe. So you got to ask yourself, what do my senses tell me? I want to trust my senses. Does it feel like we're moving? Does the sun really live 90 million miles away? That's why the sun doesn't set in the northern parts of the region, northern part of the world during a few months out of the year. It's just circling the flat Earth. It goes down. It looks like it's going down. It's just getting further and further, and then it starts to get closer and closer. In the same way the seasons work, we're doing a tight circle in the summer, and we're doing a wider one. The sun is further away. It's colder, and that's how we get our seasons. It works pretty much the same way. Photographs of it does this sort of like, it's a very intricate movement. If you look into it, it's really interesting, I think, because it sort of reminds me of like a spiral, like Fibonacci type thing that it's doing here, and people still don't have this totally understood yet, but it's doing a pretty interesting motion, both the sun and the moon. It's a pretty cool photograph of it at different points of the year, taken, at the same time, at the same place, and then you add them up, it does this like sort of 8 look, this figure 8 look. Here it is, just peering out of the clouds. Once again, not looking to be so far away. So watch it and think about it. As it starts out big and it becomes a smaller dot further away, do you think it's really setting over, or is it just getting further out of your view? Now, a lot of people also ask, well, why can't I? If the Earth's flat, I should be able to see Europe, right? See it, get a telescope, see right. Well, no. Just because the Earth's flat doesn't mean you can see forever. We all have limited view, and so do the instruments. And not only that, we have atmosphere to deal with. Think about how foggy it was the past few mornings if you were down here in Florida. Eventually, your view is going to be obstructed by the atmosphere, by moisture in the air. If you look up how much moisture is actually in the air, it
5.
What's up?
5.
5. Okay. That's what's happening, and that's what we can't see in this perspective. Anybody else got other questions? I want to kind of get to those.
Gravity.
Before are you going to perform?
Gravity.
Oh, well, you kind of cheat.
No, you don't have to. Just let Mike, because he's been watching that.
So, are there any flight paths that ever go, like, obviously sometimes they're going to go all the way east to west. Are there any flight paths that actually take the direction that you want? Because technically, if the sun is flat, you can never go all the way around. You can always, at every point, hit.
Right, so circumnavigation is another great question. You can a lot of the questions that you have, just try to think too, well, can this work on both models? And a lot of them, the answer is yes. You can circumnavigate around the globe. You can also circumnavigate a flat plane. I can go from here to here to here to here and back to my starting point. It doesn't make it a ball. It's like going around your neighborhood. It's a circle. It's not a ball. And if you were to put your compass here, this is north. So as you travel further east, you get to here, your compass is still pointing north. So if you just continue east, you'll eventually get back to your starting point. Circumnavigation is always done east to west. It's never done north to south. Because any direction truly south, you're going to hit the ice wall. And that's, restricted zone. And you also have to have, a lot of money and resources to make it there, whether on an airplane or a boat. So yeah, they both work. It's just going around in a circle that way.
Alright, so the Earth's flat. What
What
now?
now? So, like I said earlier, if we don't know where we are, we don't have a very good understanding of like where we came from or why we're here. We don't even know what this place looks like. So it's about control, and we all know that knowledge is power. And if these people in charge have all the knowledge about where we are and what it's like and if we can leave or not and how far we can go, then we don't ever try to escape or fight back or try to get out. So I think that when people realize that we're being lied to, which is the main thing I want to try to display here. I'm not even really trying to convince you that the Earth is flat. I just want you to understand that there's no evidence to support their claim and that NASA's faking space travel. And I encourage you to look into those two. But when you realize these two, you start to get you get a better grip on things, a better understanding of what's going on around you, and you can regain your power back.
But then, like, what I mean by that one now is, like, they've been working real hard to keep that shit on the wrap. So, like, even if people start believing in this stuff, like, don't you think, like, they're just going to work harder on making sure that, like,
Accident. I haven't been working hard at all.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. So sort of like the way I stay very optimistic with a lot of these topics. I stay positive with it. I think that we're at a critical part in history where we're awakening to a lot of these deceptions. And I think once we hit a certain point of awareness that the joke will be over, the game that's rigged will no longer work. And I think we're on our way there. Thankfully, with technology and being able to figure these things out now, I think we can eventually stop it, but it's just going to take more and more people to understand that that's not right. They're lying about that. That's not real. They didn't really put that car in space, like things like that. And once people start saying that, then I think that we can expose it, and then we can stop the lies.
But like even if you stop the lies, like, they still got guns stopping us from going to see that arctic, right?
Yeah.
So like,
that's true. We still may have some trouble getting out, getting over that ice wall.
Your logic is sound as fuck. Like, I totally feel everything you're saying. I just,
right.
It's like,
what actually can we do about it?
How can we do something like with that to like actually help people? Because like, the knowledge will free us within our own little space, but then it's like
yeah, no, I agree with you, and I don't know if I necessarily have a good answer for that. I think I just stay optimistic that the more people that know, that we will be able to hopefully find a way to fight back. Maybe they keep the control system on. You'll help. Thank you. Appreciate that. So maybe we can eventually find a way to shut them down. Maybe once we reach enough critical mass that we'll shut down NASA and they won't take $52 million per day. Did anybody know that? They take $52 million every single day from taxpayers to explore space. Now, when you find out they're faking the pictures of your planet, when they're faking the International Space Station spacewalks, people are going to be upset. And we're going to want to defund NASA. And when we end the space program, I think that may be the first step to getting back on track and maybe exploring the oceans that we haven't figured out. Or maybe we could feed some of these hungry people with $52 million a day. I hope. Yeah.
Showing the pictures of like the diagrams of like what the Earth actually looks like with the flat Earth base model. There's basically like a wall, right? Like a wall, like a barrier of ice, holding everything in. So when you said that, I started thinking about obviously everyone's aware of like the rapid climate change. A big discussion that people talk about is like the ice melting.
Right.
So then wouldn't that be like that barrier, that wall melting? And then, like, do you have any thoughts on that? Or how that all ties in together?
Yeah, I'm not really a big believer in climate change. I think that it's perpetrated on us for carbon tax and promote the idea of scarcity. Now, don't get me wrong. I think no matter your view on climate change, we can all work together to stop polluting and clean up the planet. Planet, whatever it is. I think that that's irrelevant what your stance is on it, but we should still work to clean up. So yeah, I don't believe in it. I think that especially once you start to understand some of this, you say, well, that's definitely not working, because what they're saying about the ice melting, there could be an endless sheet of ice that goes on forever. So we don't need to worry about it necessarily melting. You can look more into stuff about the polar bears and things. They've fudged a lot of the numbers with that stuff, but yeah, I think it would expose that as well for what it is as a fraud. I think it looks like my time is up. I wish I could jump into more. If you guys want to ask more questions afterwards, I'll be around. If you want to take my info, I'd be glad to send you some videos. There's a lot of frequently asked questions that really lay it out there. Research Eric b.o.b, type in ISS hoax, look into this stuff. Just type in flat Earth on YouTube. Get spark the flame. And like I said, don't take my word for it. Don't believe what anybody says out there unless you can prove it with your own research.